You're still watching NTV Sport Nights. Remember to use the hashtag NTV Sport Nights on Twitter and let us know your messages. You can send congratulations messages to Michael Nuwagaba, who recently was given a second chisanja at Uganda Cricket Association. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Why did you decide to stand again, knowing how hard sports is in Uganda, really? And the pressure and the heartache and the, you know, the journalists on your neck.
The dark hours of this world.
The dark hours of this world, who call you wanting a story, wanting this.
You and I share WhatsApp group, but
really,
yeah.
Passion is good. Passion drives a lot. When you're clear and you see what can happen, what the potential is, it drives you to make better coming out of it. And that's what keeps us all going. Hope.
Hope. And very similar to a certain guest that we also hosted here, you're not paid, I assume, for this. You know, you put in more than actually what you receive. So do you think maybe, you know, 10 years from now you say it was worth it?
10 years have gone far. I'm already saying it's worth it. Look, in 2 years, you've moved the men's team from 33rd to 24th. You've been able to streamline the administration, the local league. For once, you've been able to put aside some money and are thinking of getting your own facilities. You've curated a brand where at least now the best associates want to play with you. It's something, especially in 2023 when you're making 25 years as an associate country. It is something, and I think we're just at that takeoff. Things can only get better.
I see Isma nodding in agreement.
There are things that he said that I know about, but Michael, I did interview you 2 years ago.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we've not had a follow-up interview besides watching games and then you walk by. Of course, then you're in your territory. You can only wave. There's a promise you made, and it was facilities.
Yes.
How far have we gone?
Yeah, well, we've gone to about 30 facilities. Unfortunately, land in Uganda, there's so many forgeries, there's a lot of intrigue that we've failed to actually zero down on a facility. However,
You actually even offered that someone within the cricket fraternity who has a piece of, how many acres did you want? 30?
40.
40 acres of land should come to UCA if they have an interest in cricket, and then you'll invest in that land.
Dakaba, we've still failed.
How far?
Are you
What are
serious?
you looking?
Don't you have money? 2 years.
40 acres?
Show me your bank balance. We'll find the land.
We have over 800 million shillings to start this off.
Oh my
And
God.
to anyone out there who can connect us to this land,
40 acres.
How far do you
within a
want it?
radius?
we're looking at a radius
of
of 50 to 65 kilometers.
From Kampala,
Oh, yes.
from the city center.
Any direction,
Wow.
we'll take it.
And you still have
I'm
it?
getting curious.
You have something to say?
Yes.
Abantu bagenda sengula ebijja by'abajjajja just to but Michael, you away from the land, and I really hope, because we sit on these forums and you've heard me several times complain about infrastructure, the lack of facilities. But there are things that you've been doing on the other side. You've talked about the improvement of the men's team. You could also have added the under-19 boys, got back to the Cricket World Cup. They have not been there for some time. There's a time when they first qualified, the Davis Karashani generation, the Martin Ondeko generation, even actually scored 99 at the World Cup. To get those back, but then there's also the issue about contracting players. This is something UCA has done for a very long time. How much is this supposed to improve the players when they have a contract for which they know they are going to earn a living or a mini living out of? Of course, they're not going to pay them 50 million.
Sure.
Because that's Mabel's dream salary. That's why I picked on it. How much is this going to get as many players dedicated to the game?
It's a lot, multifaceted. Because one, for a player to give you time, they need to have security back home.
Sure.
They need to be sure that they're able to pay rent, they're able to get food. Those with kids, they're able to take their kids to school. That's the first level of security. So once you have that commitment done for a player, they'll give you more time and they'll commit more. And as well, it builds self-esteem. You know, normally in Ugandan sports, no one cares about the sportsman.
True.
Yeah. You know, I was reading the new law, the one that was passed in Parliament, and I was just hoping to find a clause about a player. There is none. There is none. Promise you,
In the new
Michael.
bill.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've chosen to take a different angle. Pay them well, make it performance-based, and they'll deliver. We are seeing the results for the men.
Yeah.
We've scaled this to the ladies.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we are hoping, even on the campaign we are on for the year, we should be able to see the same results. And I think when you do that, you do not only grow the players, but you grow sports tourism for a country and opportunities for more partnerships, which is good.
Yes, Michael, about how you have improved down there at UCA. I'm grateful. Sometime back I read about you people putting the ladies onto contract, and in a sport where there has been that inequality, not actually cricket a lot, but in the sporting world, there's been that inequality between women and men and all that. I'm really applauding UCA for, you know, putting the ladies on contract, and like you have said, the esteem. But then coming back to the grassroots, how do you interest the young generation, the young ones, to love the game, apart from a few schools that have it as a culture in them? And also, how do you make Ugandans appreciate it and get more involved into the game? So back to the grassroots, what are your strategies?
So the realities in the field right now is the focus schools used to put on cricket or sports has shifted a bit more towards academics. So even as sports federations, be it cricket, we've had to adjust. So we are now doing decentralization. When you go to most federations, they manage development programs centrally. We've opted to go to hubs. When you look like at Soroti, right now it gives us probably 80% of our girls' national team. So we've moved development officers to these 5 hubs. That is Soroti, Gulu, in Western Mbarara, and Kasese. So while they're in those 5 hubs, they are actually in touch with the realities on the ground. We believe that will bring up more schools. When more schools come up, it means you're having more school competitions happening. Then when you get to add in the partners we've had so far, Cricket Without Boundaries, bat ball, these partners are looking a lot at underage. And this gives a lot of oomph to the growth of the sport at the grassroots level. So as they come up, then you pick them up into the pathways.
Yeah, Michael, yourself, you're a product of schools cricket. I remember watching you all those years ago, because second term holiday, when schools cricket used to happen in September, I don't know where I even used to get the money for the taxi, but I somehow made my way to Lugogo all those many times, and thereafter I continued to watch. Doesn't it worry you how schools cricket has gone on? Because schools cricket week was once the event, the sports event in that week that happened, and actually be doing a disservice to this program if you came here and spent 2 minutes and didn't ask you about schools cricket. How much of a focus now, as you're decentralized to go to those hubs, does schools cricket week then become what it was back then? There are more schools playing today than they were over 20 years ago, or in my case, there are more schools playing today than 27 years ago when I was first introduced to cricket. So how then do you get that oomph, the power that cricket was? Because cricket was all that we had in Uganda at the time. That's why today everyone will argue every player that played for Uganda had to have excelled in schools cricket week for them to get selected for under 19 and eventually get onto the pathway to play for Uganda. How much energy do you need to put in that area? Because we cannot lose something because we are creating something new.
So we are not losing anything. The reality is 20 years ago when we were playing cricket, schools cricket week had only 12 schools.
Sure.
Right now, you have a total of 55 schools who get into a competition that will terminate into what would be the schools cricket week. So the idea is have more competition at the regional level so that then as you pick the best teams from there, it terminates into what would have been the schools cricket week. So would want to see 6 times more cricket going down to the youngsters, then terminate into a whole week into the central. Actually, what we are doing now, we've moved it away from Kampala.
Okay.
I think last year it was Jinja. We believe it builds more followership for the school-going kids. So even this year for the boys, it will be in Jinja. For the girls, it will be in Soroti. There's nothing
There
else.
was no schools cricket when I was younger. There was none for the girls. Actually, I remember one of my OGs, Barbara Mukankusi, when she first got into cricket in Chibuli SS. There were just a few girls. There was just popcorn. A few of them who played and understood the sport, and they weren't enough. Of course, there were some of us who had the privilege to have come from primary schools that had actually played cricket. And there was a time when I thought Iganga boys would never lose a cricket game.
Wow.
Because we had been introduced to the game very early. Of course, these days we've lost a few and it's not palatable. Maybe UCA should change the umpires to ensure that Iganga boys continues to win every other time. The thing though that for me, Michael, you get this ICC grant, yeah? And many a time when we discuss funding, which moves me to the second point, because we talked about infrastructure and facilities, then funding. How much of these funds do you get? Is all this expenditure tied to the national team and this contracting of players? How much of these ICC funds can you then invest in these grassroots programs?
So ideally, when you're looking at any sports federation, you're looking 5 areas.
Okay.
Administration and governance. You're looking at the local league, high performance, development, and facilities.
Yeah.
So with the kind of journey we've been on, during COVID time, we couldn't do a lot around the local leagues and the development since schools were closed. Coming out of COVID, we've more than 400% pushed a lot of development.
Sure.
So how you cut your cake depends ideal on the priorities you have. And at least one thing you can be sure about, we are passionate about kids studying. No doubt on that.
Yeah, let me just throw this in. The other year, the Uganda under 17 team were going to the AFCON for the boys. We did a story in the Daily Monitor about the players who missed exams and opted to go and play football.
Yes.
Ivan Irinimbabazi, Travis Mutiaba, Alpha Thierry Sali. I think there were 4 or 5 of them. Oscar Mawa, there were about 4 or 5 of them. Their parents said they are going to play. And FOFA put the burden of a decision for them to go and play or do their exams on the parents. And most of the parents for those boys decide they are going to play football. Of course, Alpha Thierry Sali is the most famous of those because of his father, Baby Cole, argues that the ministry should make provisions for excellent sportsmen or people with some kind of talent, and then they can do remedial exams when they are away in the time of national exams. Of course, by the time we interviewed the minister, John Chrysostom Muyinga, and he said there is no provision like that. Now, it's different with cricket and rugby. While FOFA will allow the parents to make the decision, with cricket and rugby, I've seen when you have exams, you actually you're actually asked not to come to the team.
You're pushed off the oval.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to come near it.
That's what those people do. When you're supposed to do exam, they say you can't play.
Okay.
And where do we get the balance then, Michael? Because we need these boys to excel in sport. Of course, most of the parents, like Mabel, want to see 4, then 8 in 8, then 20 points. But the kid could actually be empty with all that. No social skills, nothing more. How do you then gain a balance? And it's good you decided thing to do with education. And so where do you get the balance?
So we believe there's a time for everything. There's a time for cricket, there's a time for sleeping, and there's a time to study. Sitting in class does not only give you academic knowledge.
Sure.
True.
It teaches you discipline.
And cricket teaches you as much discipline.
For any sportsman,
Yeah.
the basic is discipline. So even all our programs, as we curate all these teams, we ensure we're running programs that are in tandem with school holidays or the school calendar. We had a camp for under 19, December, January. These boys, we know we are preparing them for the World Cup qualifiers.
Yeah.
So the moment they get holidays, they'll go to India for the length of their holiday,
Yeah.
then go back to school.
Wow, you have a story to tell when you go back to school. I was in India, I was on a plane, man. So you become very cool in your school, yeah? You know? only sports can give you that, you know, Mabel.
Yeah, I have a question here. Speaking of India, from Danny Nyeko, he says, what are your opinions on the Women's Premier League at WLT20 in India and the soon-to-be played Major League Cricket at ML Cricket in the US? Can Uganda, something, I think he missed the word there, competitive T20 cricket league? I don't know, can Uganda take part?
I think he said
Create.
Create,
Yeah.
so,
He was talking
yeah.
of creating
A competitive
competitive
T20
So
cricket league.
ideally, where we started from was the Elite League. I'm sure you saw about 8 countries having players here.
Yeah.
So even where we are right now with the girls, apart from contracting them, in 2 weeks, we are hosting 4 countries for the Victoria Series.
Okay.
2 days after the Victoria Series, these ladies are going for a quadrangular series in Namibia,
You guys are rich.
where
Yeah.
they're going to play
I don't see them having
Namibia,
problems
USA,
like other
Hong Kong.
federations.
So I think it's a step at a time. What is important is knowing what you want at the end of the day.
So where are you getting this money from? Are you in good books with
The
You
president.
know,
You know?
we spoke about the ICC grant and him cutting the cake.
Yes,
He already said on this show they have 800 million lying
for
somewhere
land just.
not only maybe
to
even to
invest
invest in the land.
Yes. And you have money to take people to
But
Namibia
Michael, all this
and-
is happening at the time when you've had a very frustrating relationship with National Council Sports. And I speak from a position of authority because I've been on this side in the media. I'm a big back of cricket. I love my cricket. I love my cricket. If you take cricket off television, probably I'll switch off the television forever. I'll not watch it. Then you have a very frustrating relationship with National Council Sports. There are times when you've not been able to access the cricket oval because it's been booked out. When National Council Sports reads their schedule or their calendar about who is going to use the oval on particular dates, I think cricket people are the first people to say we can't use the facility. And I'm sometimes constrained, first of all as a journalist, then as a cricket extremist, I refer to myself as that, then as someone who has worked with council and I know their limitations, and then also to understand that they're obliged to collect what they call non-tax revenue.
Yes.
And if they did not collect that, the General Secretary and the board would be in big trouble with the Minister of Finance not being able to collect that money. So how do you smoothen this relationship? Because it hasn't been good and way before you became chairman.
At the end of the day, what is most important is knowing what needs to be done, breaking it down into simple things and you start. It's not about how much money you have. There are federations that get way much more than what we get.
Yes, we know
But
them.
no, the reality is, as you keep performing, you keep building partnerships. And as you build partnerships, you'll get favorable partnerships. Because, for example, right now, every Ugandan team, cricket, whichever country we are called to. We do not have to pay things like accommodation.
Wow.
Some actually cover flight costs. So it makes it easier even on us. And you know, as you're performing, even government will see it.
Yeah.
So NCS is giving us some support now. And
From 0 shillings to 1 shilling.
which is a good step in the right direction. And I think it's actually giving us a lifeline. It's enabling us to be able to do some things we weren't able to do before. So we are confident we'll end up in the right spot to make Uganda more proud.
Can you say the relationship is now good? Is it?
We're moving in the right direction. But at least we have
It has thawed a
commitments.
little. From frost, it has thawed.
From frosty to something.
We have good commitments from them, and so far we're seeing them living up to those commitments. And we can only hope for better.
I can see they have some, you know, big brother kind of thing from ICC, which makes you a little comfortable, much as most of the other federations are singing and crying and all that. But talk about the ODIs and Uganda's, you know, targets as far as they are concerned.
I think right from my first term,
You promised us a World Cup,
I promised the World Cup.
and we didn't get there.
We didn't get
Can
there.
you resign?
We got closer.
Yeah, I've got.
And the way the format has changed right now, we need for men to get within the top 20.
Okay.
We're at 24. The next cycle is 2 years away. With the way we are going, we will be there. The girls, the way we are moving, we have a very strong team.
Yeah.
I am sure with whatever we are doing now, those ladies, they will go to the World Cup. Under 19 boys, they've done it.
Yeah.
So we are curating to ensure we don't take another 10 years to be there.
Yeah.
We need to be there every time.
Yeah. And I've always argued that the only way we are going to change Ugandan sport sometimes is to get involved in this age group cricket. It's unfortunate when you listen to stories sometimes of some of the older cricketers, the Dennis Musalis, the Martin Ondekos, sharing a cricket pitch with Alistair Cook, who would go on to become the biggest volume scorer for England in Test cricket. And then you see how the paths went. Of course, sometimes you're unlucky to be born in another country. If you're born in another place, you're probably going to end up the same way. And until Michael, you people at UCA make it a habit that the under-19s actually go and play at every opportunity and then qualify for the World Cup, at least there's a generation of them that will sneak through and get to the top. That's why a few years ago I was extremely sad. By then I was working at National Council of Sports. There's under-19 team that we sent to Namibia, and they failed to qualify, and they were losing to Nigeria. So I sat back and I was thinking, okay, how do we even lose to Nigeria? We're supposed to lose some of these, because this week, in the past week, actually it must have been Friday or Saturday, Nigeria were only handing out their first contracts to players. And these are things Uganda has done for a large part of the past decade. And I sit there, I'm thinking, we have no business, losing some. Actually, sometimes I think we have no business playing against some of these countries, because Uganda has gone this far, and these are just starting. They're actually supposed to come and benchmark on what Uganda has done to get that level. So when you promise this under-19 thing, I hope it becomes reality. And that has got to start for me, Michael, by increasing the volume of cricket that our players play, because we have all these eternal problems. Whenever a tournament comes around, we all sit here and ask our questions. Uganda's batting. But that for me comes from the amount of time they have to face balls. How much cricket do they have to play? So you must first of all increase the volume of cricket at the base, that someone has been exposed tremendously, that by the time they walk into an international stage, they've had all that exposure. They're not going to fear to play at that level.
That's very true, Dakawa. We keep learning, we keep evolving. Right now when you go to schools, we have about 30 cricket surfaces, but of course not every school may have such land.
Yeah.
So as well, we're evolving to make sure we can have the easier forms of cricket going on.
Yeah.
So we think that within the next 3 years, we should have tripled the amount of cricket for school kids. But again, we lose a lot of cricketers between the ages of 19 to 23.
It's true.
So we've done a lot of streamlining of our pathways, and we believe it will work.
Perhaps my final question, and I've been as dominant of this debate because I'm very passionate about cricket, perhaps more than many other sports.
Boys.
Yeah, from Uganda boys, yeah, because I've been part of a sport for as long as I got off suckling. Yeah, that's how much of cricket I've been part of. Have you, Michael, have you looked at the sports law? Yeah?
Yes.
Do you even have an input? Because when we sit on these shows, this seems like a law that the former president, Moses Magogo, had an interest, wrote down with Asman Basalirwa.
Private member.
Yeah, private members bill. They throw it in parliament. We hear nothing, not much about all the other federations and their input. Do you even have a contribution? When you read it, does it have interest that you as cricket are bound to benefit from? Or it's a law that,
Actually, we have at stake in it.
Yeah.
What happened was during the writing of that law, as federations,
you were invited.
we were invited, not once or twice. I think we had about 20 meetings, and we kept on refining it. So the stake is there. The question is, do we have the processes to support it, to deliver what it's supposed to deliver? Because we feel it has the content in it, but it needs the wings to work.
Yeah. A lawyer, our legal consultant here on sports staff, Ivan Ojakol, said we need to test it. That with every it can be very good on paper until you test it.
Yes.
The same way they're supposed to test the law about dustbins in cars. And
Of course, reality, and then the
yeah, of course, Uganda Law Society saved us.
Thank God.
Member was worried about her
A
money.
6 million fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For just a dustbin. Yeah.
But as we go, as we end this interview, it's been very nice, and thank you for coming. And you're a calm person. I think even
the manner in which he's provoked by cricketers, you don't know how he manages to stay calm.
to stay calm. Yeah. What would your final message be to the Ugandans who are watching? I know you've already touched on some of your you know, what you intend to do for this new term. But is there anything you haven't yet said that you'd like Ugandans to know?
I think being around sports for a bit of time, as Ugandans, we have this tendency of losing hope so quickly.
Yes.
I think what we can do for athletes, because they put in time and a lot, let's keep backing them. Let's support them. When you have a chance and you're hosting tournaments at home, come in droves, support them, because they're driving in not only tourism, they're driving in pride for the country and recognition. We just do that. Just like the way we have the Victoria series coming on within 2 weeks. Dakar, come with your vuvuzela. Let's support those ladies. We'll give them the belief to fight on.
I always think the first fans of these athletes should be their families. For me, the biggest call should be with their families. It's not enough. I know many sportsmen in this country whose parents have never watched them. Yeah, but perhaps in places where sport has grown to the extent that it has millions of followers, maybe the parents are just a drop in the ocean. The greatest cricketer I know, Sachin Tendulkar, his mother only watched him on the day he retired. In 2013, she had never been to a cricket game because Sachin says that the pressure of watching her son failing or succeeding, she couldn't. But then by the time she came to watch, this is someone who made his debut, I think 1987, and played up to 2013. She came in a wheelchair. When she was younger, she couldn't jump, and this after he had gone through all the milestones. Yeah, so I'd love maybe to start with the families. When your children are playing, be the first fans. That's
And our
a start.
families actually have been very conservative about sports, apart from the fear that your son would lose. But some parents don't even know what their kids are doing in those schools.
There's a
They
player in
don't
the
know.
league. There's a football player in the league. He left Arua and came. He was selected for Uganda, I think, under 20 at the time. He's a striker. He left his parents. His parents did not even ask where he was. He came and played for under 20 here some years back. And through that, he signed with one of the clubs in the league. And the parents don't even know what he does in Kampala. Yeah, but at least he's able to send back something. Then a few months, he jumps onto the bus and goes to Arua. But he's been in Kampala for what, 3-4 years now? The parents are peasants, of course. Maybe they do not even have the knowledge, but they're not even interested.
They don't know the importance of sports.
Yeah.
They don't.
Well, we have got to end it there. Thank you very much, Michael Nuwagaba, the chairman of the Uganda Cricket Association, and all the best with your new term. We'll be taking a short commercial break. Do stay tuned.
Thank you for having me.